Hello, this is UKRLIFE with Lyudmila Nemyrya, and we continue our broadcasting from Kiev. And we are very happy that our guest today is General Ben Hodges. General, hello, and thank you so much to be with us today.
Thank you once again for the privilege.
Thank you. General, I'm a fan of your Twitter. And I notice that in one of your tweets, you pay attention to an article of Philip O'Brien, where he says that many people fail to understand what matters in the course of a war. Because many journalists and experts misuse the word strategic. For example, strategic point, strategic direction, strategic offensive, and many, many other things. And I decided that it is a good occasion to speak with you today about strategic things for Ukraine right now, after the 2.5 years of big war. And my question is maybe a little bit broader. What is strategic for Ukraine right now? What is strategic for our partners right now? And even what is strategic for Russia right now? And how these strategic factors could work together?
Okay, so I don't want to turn into a military doctrine nerd right now, but we generally talk about 3 levels of war. You have the strategic level, the operational level, and the tactical level. The strategic level, of course, is the top, the ultimate aim that you're trying to achieve. So in the case of Ukraine, that would be restoration of its sovereignty, a long-time security agreement arrangement for after the conflict, such as NATO membership, a reconstruction of the country, the infrastructure, housing, agriculture, all those things. Those are strategic level objectives. And so everything that you do in terms of diplomacy, industry, and military should be directed towards achieving that strategic level. Operational level is when you conduct a campaign or a series of battles that help get you closer to that strategic objective. So the Kursk counteroffensive, that would be at an operational level. And then the tactical level is the fighting, what's happening on the ground with the soldiers in the bunkers, in the forest, shooting artillery. That tactical refers to the actions by the soldiers. Of course, it could also refer to what the Air Force and the Navy or Special Forces are doing. But those are the 3 sort of levels of war. And the key is to get the strategic objective first, get that correct, and then you develop operational objectives that contribute towards achieving your strategic objective. So the decision to go after Russia's oil and gas infrastructure, or to be able to hit Russian airfields, those kinds of deep targets, that will affect Russia's ability to fight at the tactical level. So these levels help you connect actions so that everything is pointing towards your ultimate objective. The problem for the United States is that we have failed to clearly define our strategic objective. What do we want to accomplish? So I have to guess that the strategic objective for the United States, based on what we are doing, is to avoid conflict with Russia, avoid giving Russia an excuse to use a nuclear weapon, but also keep Ukraine in the fight so that it does not lose to Russia. So those are not clearly stated by my government, but based on how I see my government delivering aid, what it does do, what it doesn't do, that's what I think our strategic objective is.
Let's go back to your Twitter. You wrote, the key to victory for Ukraine is not in the amount of money, equipment, or armor we give them. It is in our commitment to actually giving them all they need to defeat Russia and restore Ukrainian sovereignty. That is in the best interest of the West. But it seems to me, for example, that the commitment was and is, but the delay of supply of weapons remains and sometimes became dramatic.
Yeah.
For example, I see right now, when we have a big problem on Donbass, and not only on the Donbass, does it mean that Russia will break first, or it seems like a recipe for a long war?
So I believe this war will end when Vladimir Putin realizes that he cannot win, that it's up. It will not be driven by how many Russian soldiers are killed. It will be when he realizes that the United States, he knows Ukraine is not going to stop. But when he realizes that the United States and Germany and UK and France are not going to stop, that we're committed to actually helping Ukraine win, then I think he knows that it's up. Because this is why the objective is so important. If we make it our objective that we want Ukraine to win because it's in the best interest of the West, not because we love Ukrainians, but because it's in our best strategic interest that Russia is defeated and forced to live within its own borders, then there would be no hesitation about delivering what's required, whether it's F-16s, Abrams, Bradleys, ammunition, Storm Shadow, Taurus, all these things. We would be pushing it, not dribbling it out. We would be pushing it if we wanted to win. And also, there would be no restrictions on anything other than international law, of course. And we also would be using all of the economic tools more effectively, preventing Russia from exporting oil out of the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea to China and India, for example, making sure that no parts from an American company are going to India and then finding their way into Russian weapons, making sure that a ship carrying Iranian missiles never makes it to the other end of the Caspian Sea. Though these are things that we would be doing if we were committed to helping Ukraine win. So Putin would see that, and then he's the one that would start looking for an off-ramp, an exit strategy. But right now, he looks and sees that he's not convinced that we're committed. And so that's why this goes on. Now, I don't know exactly what he still has left. People, equipment, ammunition. I don't know the numbers of things that come from North Korea and China and Iran. But my guess is that his manpower situation is not something that can last forever. I mean, this is why they are doing things to bring in people from Africa and Nepal and other countries to fight. Because, of course, he does not want to recruit soldiers from the Moscow or St. Petersburg area. So he's avoided that. But that's kind of how I think about this. When somebody says, we've spent, $100 billion helping Ukraine. So what? That doesn't mean anything. What matters, of course, it's a lot. And of course, I'm proud that my government and other governments have done a lot. But the only metric that matters is, did we get to what's needed to win? If we give $100 billion worth of equipment and ammunition, but for Ukraine to win, that's going to take 200 billion, then 100 billion, it doesn't matter. That's not enough. So the key is providing what's required to help Ukraine win. This is not a competition between Europe and the US over who gives the most. That actually is not a relevant question.
General, here in Kiev, we often hear that, that our Western partners haven't enough weapons for us and for themselves as well. But even we look for North Korea or Iran, they have. And it's very unusual that such, big countries haven't enough weapons, but Iran and North Korea have.
Yeah. So this is all about political will. Look, the economies of Europe plus the United States and Canada together, it dwarfs Russia. I mean, it's not even close. It dwarfs them. Before the war, people said, come on, Russia will never attack Ukraine. Russia's economy is the size of Italy or Spain. Okay, so if you add together all the other economies compared to Russia, even with help from North Korea and Iran, it dwarfs. So it's not about industrial capacity or capability. It's about political will to invest the money required to increase ammunition production, for example, or to increase the delivery of or the number of pilots that we can train for F-16s, or all the different things that Ukraine needs to win. We could do that, but it takes political will. We should have started training pilots to fly an F-16 more than 2 years ago. If we had, think how many there would be today. On weapons production, every time I hear, oh, we don't have enough ATACMS, I want to go shoot myself in the head, because we haven't started trying to increase production. For things like ATACMS, it does take time, because these are not hammers or shoes that we're talking about. These are sophisticated weapons. And so you have highly trained labor, and you have unique supply chains. So I'm not saying it doesn't take time. I'm saying we should have started 2 years ago.
When you say time, you mean years, months, or 10 years, or a couple of years?
Well, it depends. We quadrupled 4 times our production of artillery ammunition in just over a year. So that meant opening new lines at the factory, finding new sources for the powder, etc. So it is possible. On the more sophisticated weapons, you have to have a trained workforce to make certain things, obviously. For training a pilot, I think we have always overestimated the amount of time it takes to train a Ukrainian pilot to fly an F-16. Ukrainians are the fastest learners, most adaptive soldiers I've ever seen. But still, you can't it's not like jumping from one car into another car. There are things about it. And then learning how to fly the airplane is one thing. Learning how to fight it in combat as part of an operation is something else. So that, these take months. None of this should be taking years, though. This is about political will, making decision, and doing what's necessary to achieve our strategic objective, which is helping Ukraine restore its sovereignty, because this is important for the United States and it's important for the West. It stops what Russia is doing, disruption of grain and energy shipments, Russia putting millions of Ukrainian refugees on the road into Europe. All of these things are bad for our economies. And so that's a reason to fix it, to do it right now. But also the Chinese are watching. the Chinese are watching to see, are we really serious about helping, about making Russia live up to international law, respect sovereignty, respect human rights, respect freedom of navigation. And if we can't do that with Russia, then I think the Chinese are like, not so impressed.
Let's look for the operation level. And what do you think about situation in Kursk Oblast? Because we know that Russia starts their counteroffensive. They gathered some number of soldiers, about 35,000, it's something like that. And what do you think, how, events could happen if we look for Kursk Oblast, and if you look to Donbass, how you understand the situation?
Look, first of all, I salute the Ukrainian General Staff. I think I'm very impressed with this Kursk operation, this counteroffensive in the Kursk direction, because it changed the narrative of the war somewhat. It created a buffer space. It created a political problem for the Kremlin. And it created an operational problem. Do they deal with the Kursk or bridgehead, or do they keep fighting in the Pokrovsk direction, or do they try to do both? So I thought this was an impressive operation. I was impressed that they were able to do it in a way that surprised the Russians. This has also exposed the hatred between the Russian FSB and the Russian General Staff. They absolutely hate each other. And of course, the Ukrainians would know this. Now, I think this has been going on for almost 6 weeks now or so. It was inevitable that Russia would eventually finally start getting troops from somewhere to put pressure on this bridgehead. But how long Ukraine wants to maintain that bridgehead will depend on what was the purpose of it. What was the objective of the Kursk counteroffensive? And I think that General Syrskyi and his leaders will keep that bridgehead there for as long as it accomplishes what it was meant to do. And when they're ready, then they'll pull people out. We'll see. I think that as I looked at the decision to do this, I know there were some people that were criticizing, saying, "Why do you do this? We need more people in Pokrovsk." Well, when I look at my map of Ukraine,
you have map of Ukraine on your table
all the time. Okay, so this is Ukraine, and here's Pokrovsk all the way over here. And here's Avdiivka right here. And it's about 50, 60 kilometers from Avdiivka to Pokrovsk. The Russians finally captured Avdiivka back in February. So in 6 months, in the loss of thousands of their soldiers, they are still not even in Pokrovsk. So I think that the General Staff said, you stay there. This is a secondary effort because we need to do this. We need to do this. This is classic military operational level of war, where you accept risk in one place in order to do something else. This has been happening since the time of Caesar. Commanders have had to make that decision every war, all the time. And I completely agree. Based on what I know and what I see, I completely agree with the decision of the General Staff to do that. And the fact that even about 6 weeks after this, the Russians still have not been able to capture Pokrovsk. Now, let's assume, we don't know, but let's assume for our conversation that they do. So what? What I mean is, this article that you referenced with Phillips O'Brien where the media talks about, oh, the strategically important city of Avdiivka, the strategically vital city of Pokrovsk. They're not. It's tragic. Tens of thousands of innocent Ukrainian people live there. That city has been destroyed. Hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or wounded there. Tens of thousands of Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded there. But for what purpose? For what purpose? So my objection was to the word strategic. If you say it's a strategically important city, then if you capture it, that means you will achieve your strategic objective for the war. Obviously, that's not what's going to happen.
General, do you see any opportunity for a significant change on the battlefield before the winter season begins, when large-scale action will be difficult?
Well, I do, if, number one, if the United States and UK do, in fact, remove the restrictions on using ATACMS and Storm Shadow inside Russia.
Are you expecting that it is possible?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk about it the last 2 days. I'm not convinced until I see the order, or until we start seeing explosions happening on the ground. And the Ukrainians should be able to do it before we announce it. That's for sure. I did see Secretary Blinken made some statement today. First time I was happy to hear him say we want Ukraine to win. That's an important step. 2.5 years late, but nonetheless. So I hope that he and the Foreign Secretary from UK, Mr. Lammy, have conveyed to the Ukrainian government that feel free to use these weapons as you see fit. Although in accordance with international law for warfare, of course. So that's important. If we could get in place more economic measures that would restrict Russia's ability to deliver oil to India and China, that could have some impact. But finally, I would also say, the Russians are part of this war also. So, I mean, there could be something that happens on their side that we don't know about yet. I mean, some kind of a upheaval in the government. I don't know. But at some point, the oligarchs have got to be thinking, how long do we continue to let Putin destroy their own country?
And the last one, do you worry about the situation on Donbass?
Well, I worry about it because you've got very good, courageous Ukrainian men and women that are out there fighting. Some of them are personal friends of mine. They're fighting with everything they have. It's very dangerous, obviously, and a very difficult situation. But I don't worry that somehow there's going to be this huge breakthrough, and then Russians are going to be able to just keep moving towards Dnipropetrovsk or something like that. I just don't think right now, I don't see the Russians having the ability to achieve a major breakthrough somewhere.
General, thank you so much. Thank you so much to be with us today.
Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you.